The classroom buzzed with energy as sunlight filtered through the tall windows of Jefferson Middle School. It was Friday morning, and Mr. Blake, the homeroom teacher, decided to lighten the mood with a group activity. "We're going to go around the room," he announced cheerfully, "and each of you will share what your parents do for a living. It'll be fun." A ripple of excitement ran through the students. They always loved talking about their families, especially when there was something impressive to share. Maya, sitting near the front, went first. "My mom is a criminal lawyer," she said with confidence. A few impressed nods followed. "Nice," Mr. Blake smiled. "Next?" "Ian's dad owns a car dealership," said Ian, grinning proudly. "He gave me a tour of the showroom last week." Laughter and small claps echoed. The students were engaged, and one by one they listed jobs that drew admiration. A tech entrepreneur, a hospital surgeon, a city council member, and even a commercial airline pilot were among the names dropped. Then it was Arnold's turn. He shifted slightly in his seat, eyes darting toward the floor. A moment of hesitation passed before he spoke. "My dad just works on planes," he said softly. The room fell quiet for a second. Then a few kids chuckled under their breath. "Like, what? He changes the oil on jets?" sneered Logan from the back row. "Maybe. He hands out peanuts in first class," another voice chimed in. Even Mr. Blake cleared his throat awkwardly, unsure how to steer the moment back to neutral ground. Arnold didn't reply. He didn't look up. His fingers fiddled with the edge of his desk, trying to shrink himself into invisibility. The whispers began immediately after the activity moved on. Students passed glances and smirks in his direction. Some shared silent jokes, using hand gestures that mimicked someone holding a wrench or mopping a floor. Arnold kept his head down for the rest of class. When the bell rang, the hallway came alive with slamming lockers and loud conversations. He moved quickly, keeping to the side, trying to avoid attention. But even then, someone muttered behind him, "Plain janitor," followed by a short burst of laughter. He didn't react. During lunch, he sat alone under the large oak tree just outside the cafeteria. He pulled out his sandwich, but didn't take a bite. Instead, his eyes watched the clouds slowly drifting across the sky, a blank expression on his face. He thought about his father. He remembered the quiet goodbyes in the early mornings, the tight hugs before deployments, the pictures on the mantel at home, his dad in uniform, standing next to roaring jets, medals lined on his chest. But none of that mattered now. Not here. Not in a school where appearances meant everything and quiet strength was often mistaken for insignificance. He knew his dad wasn't the kind of man who bragged about accomplishments. David believed in duty, not praise. He told Arnold that being great didn't require being loud, that some of the most important people in the world did their work without ever being seen. But those lessons felt distant now, drowned by the laughter of classmates who had never known anything beyond shiny cars, Instagram vacations, and second-hand judgments. As the afternoon sun warmed the back of his neck, Arnold wondered if he should have lied. Maybe said his dad flew the planes instead of working on them. Maybe that would have earned him a different kind of reaction. Still, deep down, he knew he wouldn't change what he said. Because even if nobody at school understood who his father really was, Arnold did. And that had to be enough. Arnold didn't say much the next day. He arrived at school early, walked straight to his locker, and quietly slid his books inside. His eyes avoided the hallway chatter, especially when he caught glimpses of kids pointing or whispering near him. Though no one said anything directly to his face, the silent mockery lingered in the air. Every time he heard someone laugh a little, too loudly, his stomach tightened. unsure if it was about him or something else. But the uncertainty stung just the same. During lunch, he didn't bother joining a table. He walked past the noisy cafeteria, through the back doors, and found a spot by the fence near the empty soccer field. The wind was cooler there, and the silence felt kinder. He unwrapped his sandwich but left it untouched, his mind elsewhere. Tatufi. Home that evening, the house was quiet, as it often was when his father was away. The framed photos lining the staircase walls told a story no one at school knew. One picture showed David standing beside a gray F-16, his helmet tucked under one arm, the American flag waving faintly in the background. Another captured a moment from a medal ceremony. His mother had taken it before she passed away years ago. Arnold stepped into the study and opened the small wooden chest his father kept locked most of the time. Inside, neatly organized, were rows of medals, citations, and mission patches. The silver star rested in the corner, its ribbon folded carefully. A newspaper clipping from 5 years ago detailed how David had landed a damaged aircraft during a training malfunction, saving 2 younger pilots who had ejected seconds before impact. He remembered hearing the explosion on the news, then seeing his father walk through the front door 2 days later, exhausted but alive. He hadn't shared the story at school back then, and now he couldn't even convince his classmates that his father's job mattered. David had always told him that real honor didn't need applause. "Some of the best work gets done in silence," he'd said once, resting a hand on Arnold's shoulder. "Let them laugh if they want. The sky never explains itself to the ground." Arnold sat on the edge of the bed, turning that sentence over in his mind. He picked up the small silver coin his dad always carried before a mission. It had a simple phrase etched into one side: "Steady hands, silent heart." He ran his thumb across the letters, trying to gather strength from the cold metal. The next morning at school, things felt no different. The laughter hadn't grown louder, but the looks hadn't softened either. In science class, when the teacher asked a question about jet propulsion, Arnold knew the answer. He'd heard his father explain it in vivid detail dozens of times, but he stayed quiet, letting another student guess instead. He didn't feel like speaking. After school, while others poured into the parking lot and onto buses, Arnold walked the longer path home. He took a side street near the airbase and watched the horizon where fighter jets occasionally streaked across the sky. The rumble of engines in the distance brought an odd sense of comfort. As he walked through the neighborhood, he overheard a group of parents talking on a porch. They were discussing a local Air Force ceremony being planned next week. One woman mentioned a special honor being given to a pilot who's been through over 80 missions. Arnold's steps slowed. "He's done some classified stuff too, I heard," one of them added. "Real decorated guy. What was his name again?" David. David Miller, I think. His heart skipped. He wanted to run up and tell them, "That's my dad." He wanted to shout it from the sidewalk, but instead, he walked on. A part of him smiled quietly, knowing the truth was already finding its way into the world, without his voice needing to carry it. At home, he wrote a short message and stuck it to the refrigerator. "Good luck, Dad." Then he placed the silver coin back into the wooden box, closed the lid gently, and locked it. Whatever the world thought of him now didn't matter. He knew who his father was, and that was enough. Monday morning arrived with a strange buzz in the air. Something felt different. Students at Jefferson Middle noticed the row of folding chairs being set up in the gymnasium, the colorful banners being hung, and the flurry of activity among staff members. Whispers floated between lockers like wind through tall grass. "Did you hear there's going to be someone famous coming today?" I think it's some kind of military guy. I heard the governor might show up too. Arnold noticed the commotion as soon as he stepped onto the school grounds. A television news van was parked just beyond the front gate, with camera operators unloading tripods and lighting rigs. Nearby, 2 security officers scanned the area, speaking into handheld radios. A military vehicle, dark green and boxy, sat beside the school counselor's blue sedan, drawing a small crowd of curious students. He did not ask questions. He did not stop to stare. Instead, he kept walking, hoping the excitement had nothing to do with him. In homeroom, Mr. Blake wore a navy blazer and polished shoes, a rare upgrade from his usual sweater and jeans attire. He cleared his throat more often than usual, glancing toward the hallway every few seconds, as if awaiting a signal. Several students had abandoned their usual boredom and leaned forward with genuine anticipation. Just before the bell rang, the intercom crackled to life. All students and faculty, please report to the gymnasium for a special assembly beginning in 10 minutes, the principal's voice announced, steady and formal. Students jumped up, eager to witness whatever surprise lay ahead. Arnold followed the crowd, hands tucked into his hoodie pocket, face unreadable. The gym was decorated with American flags, school banners, and a large sign that read, "Honoring Bravery, Recognizing Service." A stage had been assembled near the far wall, with a podium placed center stage, its wood polished to a shine. The front row of chairs was reserved for special guests, and a few military personnel in dress uniforms were already seated there. Arnold found a place near the edge of the bleachers, away from the clusters of excited classmates. His eyes scanned the stage but gave no sign of recognition. Then the principal stepped forward, holding a microphone. The room gradually quieted. "Good morning, everyone," she began. "Today, we have the extraordinary privilege of welcoming someone who has served our country with courage, discipline, and unwavering dedication." She paused as a few teachers nodded in agreement. "Our guest has completed over 80 combat missions, trained dozens of young pilots, and helped rescue a downed flight crew under extreme conditions. He has received several of our nation's highest military honors, including the Silver Star, the Air Medal, and the Distinguished Flying Cross." Gasps and murmurs filled the gym. A few students looked around, trying to guess who it might be. "And," the principal continued, smiling now, "he happens to be the father of one of our very own students." Arnold's heart stopped for a moment. "Please welcome United States Air Force Colonel David Miller." The doors at the back of the gym opened, and silence fell like a dropped curtain. Everyone turned. A tall man in full-dress uniform stepped into the room, his boots striking the floor with quiet precision. Rows of medals lined his chest, each one catching the light as he moved. His posture was proud, shoulders squared, every step measured and deliberate. Some students clapped immediately. Others stared, mouths slightly open. As he approached the stage, a television crew captured every movement, the camera's red light blinking steadily. Arnold sat frozen. David ascended the stage, nodded to the principal, and stood before the microphone. When he spoke, his voice was deep, calm, and firm. "I do not often get to visit schools," he said, eyes scanning the audience. "But when I do, it reminds me of the importance of beginnings. Every leader, every soldier, every pilot started as a student in a room just like this. No one moved. Even the most restless students sat still. My job involves flying aircraft that move faster than sound. Sometimes I also repair those same machines. Sometimes I teach. Sometimes I lead. And sometimes I get my hands dirty because I believe in earning every moment." A pause followed. His gaze softened slightly. "My son, Arnold, once said, "I just work on planes." And he was right. But what he did not say, because he is humble, is that he carries the strength of a pilot in his heart, even when others cannot see it. Arnold's name rippled through the crowd. Heads turned toward him. He knows that honor is not loud, that real pride does not shout. Somewhere near the front, Logan, who had mocked Arnold days before, lowered his eyes. David concluded, "So today, I accept this invitation not as a hero, but as a father, and I stand here hoping every student in this room will learn to see beyond titles. Because greatness often arrives quietly." The audience erupted in applause. Teachers stood. Students clapped with awe. A few even cheered. The moment had transformed the atmosphere completely. Arnold blinked slowly, unsure if this was real. But as his father stepped down from the stage and looked directly at him, something shifted inside him. Whatever shame he had once felt had vanished. Pride, quiet but undeniable, had taken its place. The applause echoed long after the assembly ended. Even as the students filed out of the gymnasium, their faces reflected a quiet awe, as though something had shifted inside them. The same voices that once whispered behind Arnold's back were now strangely silent, replaced by side glances, murmured apologies, and shy nods of acknowledgement. Arnold walked down the hallway like someone waking up from a long dream. Everything looked familiar, yet nothing felt the same. The lockers stood in their usual places. The posters for the science fair fluttered against the wall, and the vending machine still made that odd, buzzing noise. But now, wherever he went, eyes met his differently, not with ridicule, but with curiosity and respect. He reached his classroom just before the bell rang. Mr. Blake stood by the whiteboard, watching him. Instead of his usual casual smile, he offered a small nod, one that carried weight without needing words. Arnold returned it quietly and took his seat. During math, no one whispered. Logan, who once delighted in throwing barbs, sat silently, too, rows behind, pencil tapping against his desk without rhythm. Even Ian, whose father owned half the dealerships in the county, glanced at Arnold occasionally, as if unsure how to approach someone he had misjudged so completely. When the final bell rang, students gathered their things with less noise than usual. Conversations were softer, more thoughtful. Arnold walked to his locker, spun the dial, and pulled the door open. Inside, something small fluttered to the floor. He bent to pick it up. It was a note, plain paper, folded neatly. "Sorry for what I said. I didn't know. You're lucky to have a dad like that." No signature. He stared at the note for a moment before tucking it into his pocket. Outside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sidewalk. The air carried the scent of warm grass and the faint hum of engines from the nearby base. Arnold turned the corner toward the school parking lot and saw his father waiting near the car. David leaned casually against the hood, still in uniform, though he had removed the cap and placed it under his arm. His presence remained striking, not because of the medals or the posture, but because of the calm assurance he seemed to carry wherever he went. Arnold approached slowly, his backpack hanging off one shoulder. "Hey," he said quietly. David smiled. "Hey." They stood in silence for a few seconds before David finally spoke again. "You all right?" Arnold nodded. "Yeah. Better than before." "I figured it might go that way," David said, glancing back toward the building. They just needed to see a little more than the surface. Arnold hesitated. "Why didn't you tell me you were getting honored here?" David looked at him thoughtfully. "Because this was not about me. This was about you finding your footing, I wanted you to understand that your truth does not need decoration." Arnold looked down, processing the words. "They laughed when I said you work on planes." "I do," David replied. "I fly them, fix them, and sometimes sweep the hangar, when no one else will. There is nothing small about doing a job right." Arnold smiled faintly. "You made them all quiet today." David chuckled softly. "I did not need to. You already had their attention. You just did not realize it." They got into the car and pulled out of the lot. As they drove past the base, a jet roared overhead, slicing through the clouds with precision. Arnold craned his neck to follow its path. "Do you think I could ever fly one of those?" he asked suddenly. David turned slightly, eyes still on the road. "If you want to, yes. But it starts now, with how you carry yourself. Pilots are not just made in cockpits. They're built in classrooms, in how they treat people, in how they rise after being knocked down." Arnold sat back, absorbing the words. At home, the living room looked brighter somehow. The picture frames on the mantel seemed prouder. Arnold set his backpack down and joined his father in the study. David opened the wooden box again, lifting the medals gently before handing one to his son. "This one's for you," he said. Arnold stared at the polished metal, confused. "But I didn't do anything." "You stood tall," David replied. "You spoke the truth when it would have been easier to lie. You did not ask for a spotlight, but you handled it when it found you. That deserves more than you know." Arnold turned the medal over in his hands, the engraved words shining beneath the light. "Thank you," he whispered. David rested a hand on his shoulder. "Someday, you will have your own stories. But remember, you never need to explain your worth to people who measure others by noise. Let them chase attention. You just keep building character." That night, Arnold placed the medal beside his bed and sat by the window, watching the stars. He imagined his mother somewhere out there, smiling. He imagined a younger version of his father climbing into the cockpit for the first time, heart pounding, skies wide open. He no longer wished to be someone else, no longer needed to hide behind silence. Now he understood that courage came in many forms, and sometimes the quietest boy in the class had the loudest legacy waiting just ahead.